Hello and welcome to Inside Salem. I'm your host, Mike Allen. On this show, we try to give you behind the scenes of what's happening in Salem in the area, and for that purpose, we've assembled a panel of knowledgeable people in these subjects. We have Teasie Riley-Goggin.
Nice being here, Mike.
Salem
Thank you.
Political analyst. Domingo Dominguez, former councilor at large.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Mike.
Tom Furey, former school committee member, former councilor at large, and current planning board member.
Thank you, Mike.
Welcome all.
Thank you.
Some of the topics we'll be talking about today are continuation of remote meetings, zoning change, argument in Salem, the proposed plan for the shelter housing in the that neighborhood there by around St. Mary's, and some of condo conversion. I knew there was one other thing here, that one condo conversion ordinance. So, as I like to do, I just sort of like to ask Tom, because he's on the planning board and he really got his hand in the action here. Just a couple of updates on where we stand on some of the proposals, projects going forward. First question, of course, we've been asking for 40 or 50 years, I think now, is Connor Bridge in Boston. Anything happening with that?
I think we'll have to keep the conversation going, Mike, a little bit longer. I keep asking every single meeting.
Yeah.
And there's a Rotary meeting coming up, Rotary breakfast part of Rotary, and they're inviting the mayor April 1st.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the mayor April 1st at the Rotary meeting.
Yeah, but you can't trust the answer you get on April 1st.
Well, I keep on trying. April 1st, exactly. Yeah, April Fool's. But it's a long saga, and it's very disappointing for the city not to have some. It was called the Gateway Project at one time. Gateway, neat name. Right on the entrance corridor from Boston Street and from Peabody into downtown Salem, and it's been a ghost town, like a derelict ghost town there. A hazardous situation. And I don't think there's any hazardous waste there. Sylvania didn't deposit hazardous waste there, that particular Sylvania. I had two members of my family there, and that was mostly non-hazardous waste there. So that could be a prime commercial site if we had the right developer, but we don't have the right developer.
Right, yeah.
Worst developer.
It seemed to me that there was, I don't know from there, but when I was on the Conservation Commission, it was when the Salem State College at the time was building, I believe, a dorm at what was then Middle Campus.
Yes.
And that was a Sylvania site as well.
Very.
And that site was quite polluted, my understanding.
A lot of glass was polluted there. My sister worked there too.
Okay, so that was more polluted than the one.
Would you believe 3 members of my family that passed away worked at Sylvania and died of cancer? So a lot of hazardous waste that Sylvania did over the years. GE and Lynn, they deposited their waste. What is the baseball field for Salem State College and for Salem High School there, and the middle campus there. A lot of hazardous waste there. You had a big major problem there, giving that the green light.
Well, actually, we didn't per se, because not that it really mattered. I mean, it's because the only thing we had is, were they going to impact the resource area? But because it was a state project, it didn't go before any of the boards. So the neighbors who were fighting it all piled into our board. But I mean, basically, they weren't making the situation worse. They were capping things and stuff like that. So we had pretty much no say in the matter. But the neighbors were trying to use that.
Premier area.
Yeah.
Single family homes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And they were impacted.
But yeah.
Thanks for your involvement.
Yeah. Okay, so the other, again, what's happening with the Crescent Lot site, and that's the site that is down next to the MBTA garage. There's one parking area there that actually belongs to the city, not to the MBTA, although most people think it belongs to the MBTA. Any word on how soon we should be going forward with that?
Much more positive results, much more happier results sincerely, Mike, and panel situation. The last planning board meeting, we gave the green light, a unanimous vote for the courthouses, the 2 courthouses under Wynn Developments. They have control of the Crescent Lot.
Right.
So I believe within a very short period of time, the green light, the contracts will go out. They'll redevelop the 2 courthouses. They'll do the Crescent lot, and then they'll do a lot of 140 units.
140.
But commercial downstairs, a little bit of commercial downstairs, because it will flood in. It will flood in. There's a lot of flooding in that area, as we all know.
Yeah,
near the
remember
train
recalling
station.
when I was at City Council, a lot of discussion going through, and like Tom mentioned, we both was the same, serving in the same years. And but I'm thinking that, you know, if they give the green light, I think it's appropriate to say that hopefully they develop the right type of building that we are envisioning, especially in that area, because we need to keep the shape and the form of the city. So continue to be the attractive city that we see people talking about it. So if we change the shape, what we're building here, we're losing most of the important aspect of the city, which is history.
Yeah. Now,
I have a question on
sure.
the Crescent lot, please. They only have one exit coming out from the train station, and it's only going to still be one exit if they build all of these apartments.
Yeah.
If that exit floods, and it does sometimes,
That was my question. Okay.
but the other, yes, okay, I want to know what happens besides the cars floating around in there.
Okay, again, I don't recall that parking lot ever flooding.
Yeah, I think
I know
it's,
that it floods further down on Bridge Street, or towards Boston Street, but I didn't think it flooded in that parking lot. But it has.
Oh, it has.
I believe so.
Yes,
It also is a wetland.
Yep.
It's a wetland part that is basically part of the lot that I don't know what they're going to do about
Well,
it.
right. Well, it's 200 feet from the ocean.
But
and,
the-
that's in the resource
The
area,
wetlands,
and
yeah.
it's by definition wetland. But
But they have a piece of land there
yeah,
where water can run off and soak down into the earth. And if that piece of land is now being developed
yeah,
and being taken up, it's almost like a glass of water. And you put your hand into it,
Yeah.
your hand displaces the water. These apartments is going to displace where the water could go before. And I'm just saying,
yeah.
what will they do? Have they addressed this at all?
As you see the 2 developments across the street from that, the Ferris Junkyard on
Yeah.
Franklin Street, you'll notice there's 2 buildings that they're huge, 4 or 5 floors of mostly all residential, and a huge floor for parking. It's really high, so it will flood in. That area of Ferris Junkyard will flood in.
Huh.
So water will come. So you notice if you go over the overpass, you see how high the first floor is for the garage. And this is going to be the same way too for the Crescent lot. There'll be very little commercial downstairs, very low-key commercial, catering mostly to the train station itself, maybe
Yeah.
a Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. But they're going to have no electrical fixtures downstairs. It'll be on the 2nd floor, so it won't affect electricity. And the apartments will be on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th floor. High-end apartments, very nice, all the way down the Crescent lot and Mike Blyer, who's a local landscaper, is doing the landscaping, so that to prevent the flooding and so on. He's got porous surfaces, the hot top surfaces and so on, so it won't flood as much as you and I think. Mike Blyer is very accomplished professional landscaper. He indicated that there's a wall there too. There's a wall near the MBTA garage that the flooding has not gone over yet.
Well, that was my impression that
Yeah.
I know that the area down Bridge Street further down has flooded, but I didn't realize I've never noticed it flooding into that MBTA area.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's. I'm not saying that that's where the project that we should have 100+ units, and you said 140. Now I thought originally it was like 110.
It could be 110. I apologize.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Now, to give you the location, the 2 Ferris buildings that you can see coming over the overpass both ways near the courthouses, the condominiums on the top floor going for $1 million.
Huh.
$1 million. Location,
Yeah,
view, so on, the garage, parking, downtown area, restaurants, and so on. $1 million for a condominium.
Okay.
But if you use up the land, because across the way, Commercial Street is being developed also. And we know over Commercial Street that floods tremendously.
Yeah.
Yes.
Commercial Street, we do
Right.
no floods.
Yes.
that's to say,
And along with it, the businesses that have been there could not operate and cars got flooded. I'm saying commercial streets on one side, but the river is in the middle, and over on the other side, Bridge Street, right? And they flood.
I voted against that project myself. It's called 95 North Street.
Yeah.
95 North Street, right behind Mike Bleyer's landscaping business on North Street. Used to be the old Peugeot car place. And I voted against that. The only vote on the planning board I voted against because I knew it would flood in.
Yeah.
Commercial street, definitely
Right.
flood in.
Yeah.
It floods in all year round. It's going to flood in.
I
wouldn't wanna
told
be-
you, I'm opening a canoe shop over there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have a good business there. You would
Yeah,
go be
definitely.
very rich.
Yeah,
TC.
yes.
Okay. One other sort of a note on my part, just regarding the Canal Street development that was Bertini's. I didn't realize. I mean, I've been driving by and I've just really noticed the front. But the other day I was sort of stuck in traffic on Jefferson Ave, and I just sort of looked over there, and that is a massive project.
Massive.
It is a
I didn't
massive.
realize how big a project that was until.
240 units.
Yeah.
Commercial downstairs in one of the buildings where Bettini's was.
Yeah.
And I voted against that one too because of the flooding of Rosie's
Yep,
Pond,
right.
because Rosie's Pond has a high impact flooding situation
Yeah.
that will flood that area. The behind Doobie's restaurant, those residences, I know some of the families that live there, behind Doobie's, it floods. Larry McIntyre used to live there, former Park and Recreation Director. That floods in, and that will flood in. So I made 5 buildings. One building will be ready sometime in August, one
Yeah.
building, and the other 3 buildings will be ready next year.
Yeah.
But they're going gangbusters on that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to live there, sincerely. It's more compact. I refer to it as a ghetto. Putting all those 240 units
Yeah.
together like that, it's like sardines.
Yeah.
It's very inappropriate. I vote against that because.
Yeah.
But
No
it's an
living space.
ugly building.
Pardon?
It's an ugly
I don't-
building.
I haven't seen it. First of all, always artist renditions make it look good. And
Nothing to do
second
with
of all,
Salem.
at this point in time, the building is not developed enough to. But I just noticed the massive size of it. It was
Huge.
Yeah, and it's
One floor will
going to
have
be
commercial.
leaning over on Canal Street. Leaning. It's so close to it.
Yeah. See, that's a.
I know you like that, Mike.
Yeah. Again, it's a style, an urban style that I know a lot of people like to have the setbacks, but it's the main streets. And I don't mean the Salem main streets, but the main
Yes.
streets, National Main Streets Foundation or whatever. For the most part, in those type of developments, like on the sidewalk, right up,
Right up
up to the facade, right up to the sidewalk, and that you have the amenities behind. I mean, and just think of all the homes, the single-family homes that built up in Ward 4, which is probably the most single-family home neighborhood. Here it is. They had to have so much frontage in front, so they're back 20 feet, and then they have their house, and then they have a yard in back. Well, if I owned one of those homes, where would I like my home? I would like my home right on the sidewalk, so I could have a bigger backyard.
Yes, I would.
So I just
would
think
too.
there's something to be said for that. And that's more or less what I think some of the things that they're doing. But in sprawling residential areas, that's not as critical to be on the sidewalk type of thing as it is in development. But just as a terms of for the taxpayers of Salem, I believe that project on Canal Street, the Bertini's property there, is going to be a tremendous tax drain on the city of Salem. I mean, they talk about these type of projects, and when I say they, I'm referring to many analysts, but the one that I'm going to quote most is the Mass Municipal Association. And they say that these type of projects cost $1.75, use $1.75 in services for every dollar collected. And that's why I mentioned one of the previous shows that putting condos at the corner bridge in Boston, to me, was more acceptable than apartments. Because when they're condos, each condo unit is an individual unit and it pays taxes, in effect, based on what the fair market value is. So the city actually collects a fair market value of taxes on that. So.
And these are 240 apartments.
Right, yeah, apartments.
So you'll have children coming in.
Right, and again,
School system.
they're crammed in there, so I
Yes.
think it's going to be...
Crammed.
Yeah,
Where are they going to play?
That's a good question. It's crammed in.
Polly Wilbert asked that question at a meeting, and they said the next meeting, we're building a swimming pool.
Exactly, that was their answer. That was,
So
she didn't like it.
That's good from Memorial to Labor Day.
Yeah.
That's right.
Memorial Day to Labor
That's
Day.
Winter.
Maybe
Winter.
a little longer on each end, but not a whole lot.
No.
So, well, actually, what you do is you cover with a pool over in the winter and put a basketball court
You
there,
could do
or a hockey rink. Well, that you could do right in the pool. You just freeze it up, do a hockey rink, maybe a soccer field.
Yes.
Play it in the pool. But anyways.
All right, but right now, this city is being taken over right now. It's apartments today and condos tomorrow. We have condos every time you turn around. I sold a house. I had 4 apartments in it. They sold just this past few months ago, and now they're 4 condos. We're wiping out, residential, one family homes. If you start taking a ride around the city of Salem, you see it happening. Even if you look at, even for a short period of time, Airbnb, or what people can do with their homes now. I mean, there's so many different ways for people to go around the R1.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's really sad. Because, this was what, a suburb of Boston. But now we're being developed into like little Bostons. Where will they go next?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to build a sort of like a park there of some sort in that the Bertini's property, but I guess they didn't.
They're not, no.
Oh, okay.
They want apartments, 240 apartments.
Actually, I might be getting confused with the other project I want to talk about, which is the shelter, St. Mary's.
Yes.
And that one project that they're talking about doing in that neighborhood, the headline sort of was, draws mixed reviews. And I always laugh when they say that in a headline, because typically what it is that pretty much all the neighborhood is against it.
Yeah.
And then you have a few people in there who are not necessarily from the neighborhood, or maybe even a couple of people in the neighborhood said they're for it. So the thing is, since it's not 100%, it's mixed reviews. I remember back in late 70s at our place in Ipswich, our store in Ipswich, that the local Ipswich newspaper was doing a survey in front of our store, because we were very busy and got a cross-section of people coming into town. And it was having to do with Seabrook, the nuclear power plant. And it was one had already come online, part 1, and number 2 was in the proposal for being built, which I don't believe they ever built, part 2 of the Seabrook power plant. And the question was, very biased, it was, what don't you like about the Seabrook power plant? That was basically it. Or why are you not in favor of the Seabrook power plant? Something quite blatantly biased. And still, with that question, they had over 60% of the people in Ipswich say positive thing. Oh, I'm in favor of the Seabrook power plant. And the headline, big headline was, residents split on this. Now, they split because it was 99-1. You can say it's split. But that was a very misleading headline for what it is. And I felt the same way on this thing here. The neighborhood itself is, I believe, quite unified against this expansion. I mean, we're not talking about them. We're talking about something almost Bertini-like in terms of that type of project, in terms of scope.
That project itself is going to be changing, I believe, the quality of life of that neighborhood. Even though I understand that we need to find a solution for the homeless community, which is growing and growing and growing. But I always say that you have to keep a balance on what you do. You cannot only solve one situation in the expense of all the community. At this point, they try to solve something which is, we need an answer for that. Don't take me wrong, I'm very close with that community. I know how hard it is to make a living and to have a place to live. And most of the people that are in that situation, they are not asked for that. I mean, that's something that happened, and because of any situation that they between. But I think that you have to keep in mind that there's people living there, that you have to bring a solution that kind of balance the quality of life of that neighborhood and the situation for that community too. And sometimes I don't see that happen here in Salem. And every time I had to make a decision when I used to be a city council, that was my question that I asked. Are we balanced enough to make sure that we're serving everyone in the same capacity, that we don't leave nobody behind, that we really, as a city, as an administrator, look every aspect, every four corner, and not only be one side only. No. And I think, like I mentioned, that's a big project, and I think that project needs to be very careful, very well done in a way that don't not affect so many people. I know so many people living there that I think they're planning to move out of the neighborhood if that continues to happen.
I mean, this is the thing. And again, it just seems like Salem is rolling out the welcome mat to help people not from Salem, where people from Salem are just sort of forgotten.
Michael, you hit the nail right on the head. And the whole thing is that we should not be building a larger shelter. We should be building a larger educational setup, how we're going to take the people that we have at the present time and educate them so that they will have a way of becoming, part of a neighborhood and a place to live and a job to work and develop their self-esteem. But not give them a place and feed them 2 or 3 meals a day. And in the morning when they wake up from being at the shelter, they turn them out into the neighborhood and they roam around and get themselves in hot water, really. Okay. And repeat, they get their lunch and then roam around and then at night. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So they have to know by now, or they should, that there's a different approach. People have used it, they have gone through it down at the Cape. I attended meetings way back in the Salem 5, and they had some very good plans and ideas for education and people that were going to all work together on it. But that went by the wayside, and they went back to the other thing. We're supporting a private organization that is using a public city to carry out what they should be taking care of. They're the ones who are providing and bringing the people here, and then telling them what? They don't want them a tent city anymore. And you already mentioned April 1st. On April 1st, if they don't pay the rent on that building, and the city said that they have no more money, they're paying for a private shelter to rent for 75 or 80 people. Where are they going to go? I don't think they threw those tents away. There's stockpiles someplace. We're going to see those tents out again.
The city, so the city is paying rent for the people who were living in the tent areas?
No, in the shelter. They were paying the rent on the building.
The city is
up until now, April 1st.
Okay.
They're not going to be paying it
and
there.
This is the building on Canal Street next to their thrift shop.
Yep, right.
And they had 75 or 80 people?
Right, exactly.
Oh, they were probably crammed in like sardines as well.
They are. They can touch each other head to head and everything. Yeah. There's no air conditioning. There's only 1 or 2 bathrooms. There's no showers. Nothing. Yeah. And I'll tell you.
Well, it's better than living in a tent. They don't have those amenities.
They would be better
either.
off outside in a tent. It would be healthier.
Yeah. Okay. So, so the thing is, at this point in time, the city has been paying the shelter rent. Is that correct?
No. It is owned by a family that owns a lot of property in Salem that they are renting from.
I see.
That's right. And now that the city said that's it, they don't have any more money to give for it. But you also remember now, we have, I don't know, Tom would know better than I, because of the planning department, where the Marriott Hotel is going to be building and planning, and they're going to be doing all of different things down there. They're going to need that area. April 1st would be a good time to get rid of that shelter down there and start turning things over so it would be ready for the Marriott. Do you have any idea, Tom, when that's happening?
That's 3 or 4 years down the line.
That is 3 or 4 years?
They're in the investigation stage, doing the permitting and stuff like that. But very initially, there will be a Marriott hotel where the ice place is, Fred's
Sammy.
roast beef, Sammy's roast beef is there now. That will be a Marriott hotel with collaboration with the Hanover Inn across the street, which is a partnership situation, a good partnership, business partnership. So eventually, I believe that shelter area that we're talking about right now will not be there.
That's right.
Will not be there.
Because as I mentioned in a previous show, and we're talking about Marriott, for those who haven't seen the previous show, Marriott Hotel is exploring putting a hotel in Salem on the corner of Canal and Mill Hill area and all that, Washington Street, Canal and Washington Street, where Sammy's roast beef was for many years with Big Fred's, and the ice place, and I said at the time, and not taking the Verizon
On the corner.
cellular store, but I tend to think that's hard to believe that's not
I
going to
agree.
be taken. That ultimately,
I agree.
They're just
Totally
probably
agree.
holding out for more money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because it's just too hard to build around them.
Location.
Yeah, it's too hard to build around them. So they're just holding out for more money. But again, to do a project, they just don't have enough. I mentioned there's just not enough footprint. I mean, the hotel would be too small. If they, unless they go 40 stories high, they can't have enough rooms to make it
Exactly.
worth their while. So I just assumed they would take what is Lightbridge as well.
Exactly.
And so which is
So
again,
that's going to impact the neighborhood across the street, same area as Church. And originally, that's been downsized in this new revised version. There was supposed to be an elderly complex there for senior citizens, 1 bedroom, maybe a number of units, say 20, 30, 40, 50 units for elderly housing for single people. Like myself, I'm a single elderly person, could live down there. That was cut in the revised plan.
Yeah.
So the neighborhood is still going to be impacted. Chestnut Street came out against it. Some neighbors in Chestnut Street said that, no, that's going to affect Chestnut Street too, not only Steve's
Right.
Market area, it's going to affect the Chestnut Street area
Yeah.
in the climate of that whole neighborhood. So there's a lot of opposition, much
Yeah.
more visible opposition.
Yeah.
To
Now, Domingo, you would have had your hand on the pulse of this before, but now you're a little bit out of the
Yeah.
thing. Of course, I'm now out of it. Our 5th member, Attorney Jim Fleming, who was former Ward 6 councilor and former school committee member, who again have some knowledge of it, is a little bit out of it, but you're still in the thick of it. What is your guess or feel for how what will happen with that? Is there going to be a development there in that neighborhood?
Absolutely. Absolutely, there will be a development there. Steve's Market will be there, maybe the liquor store, the salons, and the little small businesses nearby.
This is on what, Gidney Street?
On Getty Street, you're
Yeah.
right, exactly. But I think realistically, that in the reality of the 21st century, there's going to be a revised shelter there, taking even the Columbus Society, taking even High Street Playground. I was a park instructor there, as we mentioned along the way.
Yeah.
That's a very compact, hot top playground.
Yeah.
That whole area is very jam-packed. But yes, I agree. If I was a betting person, yes, I would bet that's going to be done within maybe 3 years.
Huh. Okay. I mean, and again, so they're just at this point in time, they're just settling on how many units they're going to have to build and how big.
Exactly. I think we have to face reality.
Yeah.
Where else?
Yeah.
Downtown.
Yeah.
They're right near the police station, and the police station has a good relationship with them, Cataldo
Yeah.
Ambulance and the services that's needed.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, within 3 years we will see that. 2
Okay.
or 3 years.
Okay. Speaking of condo conversion ordinance is before City Council. As I've said in the show in the past, I mean, at this point in time, the horse has left the barn. So, having because we've converted so much to condos already, that it has really impacted having, market rate, affordable, single family, a multi-unit, rental properties, because they've all been, so many of them been converted to condos. But as Jim would always talk about how it shouldn't have been allowed, and I was always sort of like on the fence about it, because like in your case, you said that you sold a 4-unit apartment building, which was then converted to condos. Well, you could have converted it to condos yourself and sold it for a whole lot more money. And, why should someone who's had this property for many years, et cetera, which many of the people who did sell their properties had them for many years, not be able to maximize their retirement, in effect. So, I know it's tricky with condos, converting older housing stock to condos for that reason. It's like, the person, this is my investment. A lot of years at owning this place in Salem, and here I get a chance to make some money for my retirement. And it's sort of a tough thing, but so I assume this is before the planning board as well.
No, I think it will come eventually to the planning board.
Okay.
But I think Ty Hapsworth and the city council is trying to make some remediation for renters. I can picture TC being a good landlord to her tenements. She would know her neighbors, compassionate all year round, as a good neighbor, making a village of that for apartments. But now people are just selling those, and the poor renter has to leave very quickly. So now the city council is trying to step up, saying, "Hey, can we help mediate the situation so the new owner of this condominium complex taken over will pay some subsidy, some mediation to the renter to leave.
Okay.
Pay maybe the first month's rent
So,
or whatever it may be.
Okay.
They're being impacted. The renters are being impacted as the renter was yours.
I think that's a good thing to happen. I believe that's make it even so the renters community have at least something so they can alleviate their situation. I understand that most of the condo are being bought by people who really have some money, people who invest in. It's a business equation, and I understand that. But on the other hand, like we say, the renter was not protected in any way.
Yeah.
So by putting this in place, we help a lot to the renters.
Yeah.
And I applaud that action. I think Councilor Harper and the rest of the council who are in favor of that are doing the right thing. They go in the right direction. So hopefully we can have something in place that can help a little bit more to the renters, especially nowadays. That is a lot.
Yeah, because I mean, Salem is the hot place to live, and it's supply and demand. We
Too
can't,
hot. It's getting too hot.
I mean, we don't have any more land to build on. Basically, I mean, we're cramming things in and cramming things in. I mean, again, we talk about the Crescent lot. We talk about the properties at Bertini's. I mean, the corner of Mason Street and Flint Street, that area. I mean, that's a lot of units. What, 130 something units there?
Amazing, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, there's just so many things on Boston Street itself, which used to be Flintan. I mean, there's a bunch of units there.
Yes.
I mean, it's a good-looking, property. It's just to me, it's way too dense.
Yes.
And but
It's also bring to my mind, that when we're talking about condo, in most of the cases, we have young family who buy a condominium, but they don't bring their children. I mean, they usually have only a couple without children.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to make sure that we continue to function as a city in which we have family-oriented capacity so we can have our school to be full of the new generation. The future of any city is the youth, the children, and if we cut that capacity, we actually are condemning this city to become one of the biggest cities like Boston or New York, but at the end of the day, most people who are living here, it's going to be only newcomers, and the people that are here established as a family, generation by generation is going to be extinguished. So by not having a plan to help renters to bring more family-oriented people to the neighborhood and continue to be the city that we have, if we don't do that on time, we end into be a city that maybe we don't know what's going to happen 10, 20 years from now.
And the other thing too, Mike, about you talking about the fact that I had a piece of property and I could have developed it and probably made extra money. But if you take a look about the way things go here in the city of Salem, no offense to you, Tom, yet it's not your fault the way they move. They move at a snail's pace. And it starts with usually the planning department that they start with. I don't agree. That's not who I would start with. But that's beside the point. And before, people used to go before the planning board and present their little cases, right? And work through it with the planning board or the design review board, or somebody would help them out. I would say what percentage, and you could answer this because you're there, what percentage of these people have lawyers and what percentage do not? Now before, it wasn't with lawyers. What is it now?
I agree with you. You got to have a high-end lawyer, a key person for these developments. And you and I, renter or owner, don't have that lawyer capacity. So they can supersede a lot of the paperwork situation. So they can go on the fast track situation, which makes an impact on the renter. And I commend and congratulate the City Council for stepping up to help the situation, because the renters are being squeezed out of the City of Salem.
Yeah.
Yep. You said like Marriott coming in. Oh no, that's 2 or 3 because they're just looking around and trying to figure out and do this and do that. In Salem, that's the way they have established, their reputation of what they do. I look at what happened over there in Beverly. Beverly is, they really moved. They moved, boom, 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 boom. Just, like you looked and all of a sudden there's a new neighborhood and all the buildings have some continuity, because aren't the majority of them all brick on Rantoul Street?
Yeah.
It's a concrete jungle, brick concrete jungle along Rantoul Street.
Well, if you come look around to what they're building in Salem, what do you get? A combination of God knows what now. No.
Yeah.
I see what they've done in some neighborhoods, and it's really sinful. No. When they started tearing up or building up or ripping apart part of Federal Street, there should have been a stop put to it because of the historic value of this city. The city doesn't have the historic value it had before. No.
Okay.
It helps having a very good lawyer, if you're a homeowner, to have that. Most homeowners don't have a very good lawyer when these big developers come in and they buy them out.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say,
and
I'm a real estate broker, and no way. Along with the rest of my family, I have a daughter who's one, I have a niece that's one. But to say that they want to, get in part of whatever you want to call, once you're in that about presenting your case and going here and going there and going back and forth, the lawyers, not the lawyers' fault, not the lawyers, that they're going to make as much money as they can. That's what they train for, make money, right? Yeah. But
it's Salem's loss losing people like yourself who have the apartments and so on. That you know your neighbors, you care for your neighbors and so on. It's Salem's loss in that process, having outside developers come in.
And the thing is this, when I was on the Conservation Commission, which was like 20 years ago, there were like 3 lawyers. And it didn't matter what project it was one of these 3 lawyers who were representing them, for the most part. I mean, like 90% of the stuff that would come before.
Same thing on the planning board.
And I assume it's same in the planning board, and probably the same 3 lawyers. Actually, probably one of them's probably retired now, but the other 2 are probably still very active.
Very powerful.
Yeah. City of Salem, one of 10 communities to be in compliance with the state mandated 3A zoning thing for their
the trains?
Yeah, for the MBTA and type of thing that they're doing, and because of it, gets a $1 million bonus. Yes. But
we were the first of 10 of the 351 cities and towns in the state of Massachusetts. Of the ones touching the MBTA, we were the first 10. One of the first 10.
Yeah.
So we got little bonus.
Yeah, and the thing is this, it was,
Infrastructure.
it's 351 cities and towns, but there was only like 130 that need to comply with this. So of the 130, we were 10. On the other hand, we have also Middleton actually suing the state over this mandatory change based on the state auditor who seems to be at odds with both the governor's office and the legislature and the district attorney. but she indicated that it was an unfunded mandate, which you're not supposed to have unfunded mandates, and develop this. So we'll see where that's going to go. But Middleton is suing on a different thing because a couple other communities have sued the state as well and have lost. But this is a different avenue. So maybe we'll see something
It's going
different.
to be hard to fight City Hall in that case.
Yeah. So, remote meetings. It's coming before the state legislature to continue to allow, a hybrid remote meeting circumstance where, that was introduced during COVID pandemic, and a lot of people are calling it for it to end. Again, as I've indicated in the past, I don't mind, the Zoom where the public can, come to the meeting by Zoom and even ask questions and things. But I do not believe that the city councilors and the planning board members and the school committee members and stuff should be doing it remotely. They should either be there or they're not in that meeting.
I applaud you for that. Yes, I agree.
I'm in agreement with you on that part.
I remember you were always on a tropical island at every city council meeting.
Yeah. So I understand that the Zoom meeting and the virtual meetings bring more participation. There's a lot of people who actually cut off from work, and they actually make it easy for them to be in the computer. But I totally agree with you that the city council and any board members that they commit to do a work, they need to be present and try to to be 100% there, representing the people and making sure that they make the right decision. However, I understand also that the modern times where we are right now, that's the tendency that we see everywhere. But we see the new change now in the federal government, who actually find a lot of places empty, paying for a lot of buildings in where people never show up. And those things, I think, need to be taken into consideration in any cities and town if we wanted to maximize the revenue that we have in the city to make the living better for everyone. So I think that people who are committed to a job, elected or not elected, people who are appointed to any commission, any type of the service that they give it to the government, to the residents or the city they represent, need to be present. To be present. 100%.
But as Michael said to you, you sat there on the city council for a number of years, but you always sat there and we represented what you were supposed to do. If the councilors were to read what they were took an oath for, they would find out that they're not doing their job the way they should do their job. They're there to represent the people. They're not there to represent anything personal on their part. They're there to represent the people that voted them in. And that seat that they sit in, they don't own it. It's just leased to them through the voters for a 2-year period. And all of these things, they should be reminded again and again. And many people have. We have some people who are loyal, and they go to the meetings, they go to and stand there, and then they cut them down. It's a 15-minute testimony that they can give. But they can't wait. The councilors sit there and they look and they listen to the people say, please represent us. That's what you should be doing. That's what they're asking for. And no, after the people walk away from the microphone, it's almost as if they were invisible to begin with.
Okay. Now,
Shame
Tom,
on them. And Tom, you have come a long, long way insofar as I look what you're doing on the planning board, and it doesn't seem to bother you that you can stand alone, like Domingo stood alone, proud to be there for the people. And you stood there and didn't budge an inch on some of the things.
I still stand alone, like Domingo on the planning board, because it was given a 2-year extension. And I predict in the next meeting, tomorrow night's meeting at the planning board, it will vote to keep it hybrid situation, with Zoom situation. I will be the only vote for going public with Zoom. I like a public meeting. I like us being here, the human faces.
Again, I agree with the idea of, which again was not allowed in the past, of someone from the voting public be able to ask and a
Yeah.
question via Zoom and interact via Zoom. I don't have a problem with that. But the appointed board members, the elected officials, I believe that they need to show up for work.
And it's hard on the developers with all their paperwork they have to bring in the diagrams and Zoom. They love Zoom. They love Zoom presenting their architecture, their structures and infrastructure and so on. But for the public meeting, the board members, they really need to be there.
Yeah.
At least 2/3 have to be there, should be there. So we're losing out in that public democracy situation.
Yeah.
So I'm the lone voice, like Domingo was on the city council, on the planning board. They love the present situation there. The Polly Wilberts of the world will make a way of going on Zoom, Polly Wilbert, or coming to public meetings. Polly would always come to public meetings along the way. Great people, that's democracy, that's Salem. And we have had more participation because of the Zoom situation in the last 5 years. The city council meetings, planning board meetings, school committee meetings, and so on. You see the audience at the school committee meeting and same city council meetings, very little, more public.
The pandemic is over. It's over.
It is over.
It's over. And right now, did you say that this meeting, they're going to take the next meeting, they're going to take a vote on this?
Yes.
Well, you know, if they definitely know that if they vote not to go back to their meetings where they belong, then, you know, I think it's time that we the people, organize and start protesting in front of City Hall about the planning board and a few other boards out there. The weather is better. It's a great time. And we have a lot of people who love to make signs and protest.
Yeah, the only problem, and I don't want to discourage anyone from doing that, but the only problem with it is we've voted in the people that have made these appointments and have allowed this. If we were voting in different city councilors, I mean, again, Councilor Domingo lost his bid for re-election. He should be on there. I mean, at no point in time did he not do his job.
That's right.
But again, he came down on the wrong side of the political powers, and the political powers are getting the vote out, they're getting their vote out, and therefore, you know, they're making the rules. And so this is where we are at this point in time.
Well, but the other thing too is, you know, the city councilors call in the planning board, and the planning board has not disappointed the city councilors about, like, the B1.
Yeah.
And they went back to their little Zoom meetings, and what did they do? Well, they all, you know, supported what the city councilors wanted. They're both supporting something that the people in the city did not want.
Okay.
So, you know,
And you're talking about
I
this
say
current zoning change?
Yeah.
Because
Yes,
there's-
I think,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with TC.
And that's still in the works.
They're in
right?
the works,
Right.
yeah.
But it's basically a done deal.
We
Is
have
that
to keep-
correct?
keep an eye on it. The shelter is a
it's
done deal.
done.
I believe the
They got
shelter is a
first
done
Shelter
passage.
deal is done deal. Okay.
First passage, yes. And I'm just saying, no. It's as we say, no mayor wants anyone walking back and forth in front of City Hall. That doesn't. It's not good for their image. And this mayor is running for re-election.
He doesn't have an opponent. He's not going to have an opponent. Who's going to run against
No
him?
one have an announcement yet, but I want to thank you for your comments on my capacity as a city councilor. I also feel that many of the deals that, so-called deals that we see out there, for some reason, the public have the mentality that it's been already been set up under the current, because many of the action that we've seen from the government in general, no one in particular, indicating that everything has already been set up, and the voice of the people is not being really taken into consideration. Take, for example, that project for the charter. Many of the neighbors are opposing from day one that this charter be in that place, and they go into the meetings, they speak in a different way, but at the end of the day, everything is being done the way the developers or whoever power assigned. So that's how many of the people lose the faith on the government they are electing. One thing that I keep saying to my colleagues and people who are in service, in public service, is to be transparent, try to deal in front of the people. make decision based not only on what a group of people think. Make sure that you hear both sides. Make sure that you balance your decision, and make sure that you represent really the people that elected you. At this point, in many of the occasions, we've seen a lot of people disconfort with the action that we take in many of the cases, because only benefit one side, do not really care about the other side. And I think that's what we're missing in government, and a lot of people losing face.
Yeah, well,
All right, I have, we have councillors here, and I will ask. I always felt that we have 7 wards, 7 councillors, and we have councillors at large. I always felt that a councillor at large should be there when the chips are down and there's some big thing going on in the ward, that they would go in and help out that councillor to the best of their natural ability by doing investigating and listening to what the people really and truly want. But I've watched time and time again on this thing, once again, about the B1. I'll use that because it's the most recent. And I noticed that we had at one point, it was a 7-3 vote, which it was enough because they needed on it a supermajority, which it only happens when it doesn't deal with something else. So this time it was an 8-2 vote, and it failed. That meant that the B1 could be put up and out and advertised to blanket it and get rid of it throughout the city. And right now I look and say, do I understand it right about a councillor at large? You were on the council. Tell me how you looked at it.
Yeah.
That was the role Lenny O'Leary and other presidents of city councils
Right.
expected the council at large to do, to back up the ward councillor in the case.
Not administration, the councillor
The council
who
at
was
large to
representing
back up
the people.
Ward council, as you said, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's changed over the years. The ward council has been citywide.
I just want to go back to defining it to the people out listening. The zoning change we're talking about is, and who's going to best explain it? Not me.
I think Tom can do it.
Why don't you explain what the zoning change is being proposed, where they're talking about a B1 district allowing like Derby Street and stuff. Yeah,
And that's a done deal. I think that's a done deal too. I think that's
right, but can you explain
that would allow a lot of cities in town, a lot of neighborhoods are used to having a neighborhood package store, neighborhood store to buy their groceries. Those days are gone. If you look along Jefferson Avenue, other streets, Derby Street, and so on, would have little family places to shop and buy, and restaurants and so on. Now, more and more, this zoning will take a place that there'll be more liquor licenses, more bar, restaurants, with entertainment, live entertainment. In fact, my son's restaurant on Derby Street has live entertainment, a bar, and a restaurant. And it was packed for St. Patrick's Day, as you're all dressed up, bingo. And that's an example of what's happening on Derby Street. You're going to have a lot more restaurants with liquor licenses, or distilleries, whatever it may be, on Jefferson Avenue too, where in the past you couldn't. Right now, it'd be hard to have a Doobie's restaurant move in to that neighborhood. Very, very hard without zoning change. It'd be very hard to have a Tin Whistle restaurant move into Jefferson Avenue. Impossible. With this new zoning, it would allow more restaurants, more commercial, more businesses along the commercial, say Derby Street and Jefferson Avenue.
What other streets are, like North Street maybe?
I think Lafayette will be highly impacted. And
Lafayette?
New Derby Street. And
right, New Derby Street's only a block long, and it's all commercial anyway.
All commercial.
Yeah, yeah.
And neighborhoods are impacted.
Derby Street, Lafayette Street,
Jefferson Ave. Yes, definitely.
Those
and Boston Street. And
Boston Street. Those 4 streets are the ones we're talking.
Major impacts. And those neighborhoods will have major impacts.
Yeah, in Boston Street, it's pretty much all commercial as well. I mean,
yes, no small restaurants, like Chinese restaurants and so on there.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, and then but there's not really a lot of residential there.
No.
There's car repair places, and
there may be more along the way.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I know it's almost time to end, and could I just mention about for the seniors out there,
sure.
The COA, the Easter dinners that we provide for the people who are home in their homes and don't get out. They can't get out. They count on what we've done for many, many years, the Friends of the Council on Aging, and enjoy doing it. And we can only do it because of the wonderful donations many of you out there and businesses have provided for you. So we like to spend their money wisely. It's not a time to say, we want 2 dinners here because we'll probably eat those later after we get home from someplace. Yeah. But they don't let you know it's after they get home from someplace. Yeah. We're asking you out there to respect what we're doing for the people that really and truly need them delivered to their house on Thanksgiving Day.
Okay, and Easter you're talking, but
Easter, yeah.
And if someone needed this service, or
the last day they can apply for this is April 14th.
Okay, and which is 6 days before Easter, which is the 20th.
Yeah.
So, what telephone number would they call?
I knew you were going to ask me.
I know you didn't, 'cause if you know you would have.
Rosanna Donahue, I believe.
Okay.
I don't have the number by hand, but I can find out. But I think
Okay,
Rosanna.
so why don't we
go
get
ahead,
that number
go
for
for it.
people, and so that we can do that. So this is the Friends of Council on Aging do this for those people, not quite shut-ins, but sort of shut-ins in a way.
Yes, it
Want to
really
have
is.
an Easter
Yes.
dinner.
Phone
What's the
number is
telephone number?
978-210-2166.
So
You are good.
210-2166?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, very good.
It's a great program, and I encourage people who actually is watching the show to participate in either way.
Oh, okay. And
Thank you, yes.
Thank you.
okay. And I believe we're out. Thank you very much. Everyone, if
Thank
we're
you.
not out.
Oh, we're out?